Please welcome to the stage Laura Dern and Stacey Abrams.
Good morning, everyone. What an honor to be here.
Hello.
I am thrilled to be with all of you, thought leaders, amazing, predominantly women here in this room, and some fabulous men. But I am here today because I wanted to sit next to my superhero. And I know we are all here with great admiration for you, Stacey, and for all that you have done for all of us and for this country.
Thank you. However, I'm here with Laura Dern. Oh my God. I'm like this close to being a stalker, but without the restraining order.
I feel the exact same way. And I have to say, if I was making up my dream superhero, she would definitely be the strongest, most powerful, loudest voice in this country to fight for and be determined to save democracy while also writing romance novels. I'm just going to let you know that doesn't exist.
What else is democracy for?
Exactly. But in all that you have done, in your incredible service to this country, to the state of Georgia, to everything that you have done in your work, in your advocacy, in your endless fight for voter rights as minority leader, I am so particularly moved to get to talk today about how you have turned your focus now so deeply to climate, to this climate emergency globally. And maybe we can start there in what shifted for you or what made this more of a passion, and then your connection to becoming ultimately senior advisor for Rewiring America.
Well, first of all, thank you again for serving here. Thank you to the RAP for having me. Although most people aren't aware of it, I have lots of hidden compartments to my story. And one of them is that I've been very involved in environmental issues for most of my life. I grew up in Gulfport, Mississippi, near Cancer Alley in Louisiana. I grew up in communities that were too often the location for power plants and for chemical plants and for dumps without the capacity to force those who should be responsible for us to do something about it. And then I went to college. My older sister went to a school that was not far from mine. She went to a college that outside of their campus there were bookstores and coffee shops. Outside of my campus, there were liquor stores and gas stations. And I didn't know why, because we were paying the same tuition roughly. And I wanted to understand it. And the reality was it was about the decisions government was making. And the environment, the literal environment you lived in, was determined by people who didn't have to pay attention to you. And so I've spent most of my life, my college thesis was on environmental justice issues. Actually worked for the EPA for 2 summers, including for the Environmental Criterion and Assessment Office in North Carolina. My first romance novel was based on environmental justice. My second legal thriller, Rogue Justice, was about an energy crisis. So I've been trying to subtly weave it into everything I do. I just finally got somebody to pay me for it, and that's Rewiring. And so to Jordan's point, after I aspired and tried to build but did not quite get the job I wanted in 22, Rewiring America reached out to me about how we take advantage of the investments that are available to electrify everything, to make it possible for communities to control their destiny. But the issue is, how do you translate policy into action? And that's one of the things I try to be really good at. And so they brought me on board, and it's been an extraordinary privilege to work with them for the last couple of years.
Well, let me just, as an aside, say I was raised by my grandma, who's from Gulfport, Mississippi, and my mom
I knew I loved
is from
you. Oh
Poplarville.
my God,
yeah,
yes.
So we're a Mississippi family. But now, as you look at this work, maybe we can start in the macro a bit, specifically specifically, to the question of electrification. And in the work with Rewiring America, in general for Americans, maybe you can speak to what it means, not just on a climate level, as we know, the focus and the desperate need to transition from fossil fuel dependency, but for healthcare, for cost of living, resiliency, what it means when if we as a country started to move toward electrification even within our own homes.
So 40% of the energy-related emissions that happen in this country come from what we do in and around our homes. So what we cook with, how we heat or cool our homes, what we drive, 40%, which means 60% is the other stuff. But that means 40% of it is within our direct control. Rewiring was born as an organization that advocated for the Inflation Reduction Act to ensure that the IRA, which passed under the Biden-Harris administration, that money, real money, went into not just creating battery plants and electric vehicles, but to give individual residents the ability and authority to actually have an impact on climate action. So deciding the kind of stove you use, deciding the car you drive, changing out your HVAC system for a heat pump, all of those choices are within the control and the bounds of individuals, but most of us don't know that we can afford it. The reality is we can not only afford it, we could save money. And that's the benefit of the work that Rewiring does. Our mission is to tell people it's actually cheaper to do better. You can save money, you can get better stuff. It looks really cool. I mean, those induction stoves are really awesome. And it doesn't have to be painful to be good. And that comfort is the piece that is so important because it helps address that 40%. It lets individuals make choices that don't feel like sacrifice. And instead, it feels like community. And I think that's the most important part of how Rewiring is approaching this. Rewiring is a part of a consortium that just received $2 billion to help implement electrification, which simply means that you're shifting from the use of fossil fuels to generate the electricity in your house to using cleaner means. And by electrifying the appliances in your home, no one is saying you have to get rid of what you have. But if you want something new, if you want something nicer, you should be able to afford it, especially if it makes it healthier for you to do what you do every day. And so the work of Rewiring America and now our Electric Creatives Coalition is really about making sure everyone else in America knows what you now know, because we want you to be secret. We don't want this to be a secret. We want everyone to know that there's money out there to help you make your lives better.
And especially in this, incredible room of colleagues and now conspirators in this mission, maybe you can speak to electric creatives within the entertainment industry, both what we need to be doing and how to learn what we can do, whether it's within our own offices, in production, but also as creatives, as storytellers, how to help you and Rewiring America and our beautiful planet to push this messaging so that every American understands what's possible.
So, as a storyteller, I'm privileged to have a production company. I have a podcast. Assembly Required with Stacey Abrams. You should check it out.
Woohoo!
And I say that to say we have these touch points in our communities that help people understand in bite-sized ways. We don't have a lot of time to explain things. I'm sitting in a room of people who know how to convey multiple layers of meaning with a scene, with a sentence, with an image. And the goal is for us to show the rest of America what's possible. And so the Electric Creative, it is designed for everyone in this room, whether you are a writer or a set designer or a studio head or the person who's got to do the budget, because these appliances are getting cheaper. So it becomes more cost efficient when you've got to squeeze that below the line a little bit tighter. Those are ways you can do it. And so what we are doing at Rewiring is working with you. We'll consult with you to help you understand how to achieve those cost savings, because it actually saves the world. I mean, you were kind enough to call me a superhero. I'm in a room. I mean, I don't know how many of you watch Buffy's, but y'all are all potentials. And as potentials, I am telling all of you that we can activate our potential right now. The ability to use the visual, the narrative, but also just the culture-setting power of Hollywood cannot be underestimated. When someone sees it being used, I mean, brooms are going to sell out next week because of Wicked. You're gonna have to use an electric vacuum from now on, because our ability to change and set the narrative and set the tone is extraordinary. And so to the extent we take environmental action, climate action, out of the atmospheric, that's what rich people do, that's what white people do. That's what insert not me here, that's what they do. We've got to make sure it's understood that this affects all of us, and therefore all of us have the power to benefit and the power to direct. And in a moment in our nation where we feel sometimes out of control and disempowered, controlling the very nature of our future is absolutely doable. Because that 40% means if you live inside, you have the ability to affect how or if our planet survives. But this room can think creatively about how we show this, where we show it, how we reinforce it, and how we make it so that anyone who is opposed to it is seen as the outlier and not as the truth teller. And that fundamentally has to be what we accomplish in this moment.
And I implore all of you to help me bring other creatives to Stacey and her work. We were just brainstorming backstage about creatives that are already in storytelling that reaches the masses, but also where you could find humor and relatability to the, this is complicated, it's gonna cost me more money, I don't want the new, I don't know how to do it, so that people can understand what their resistance is about by seeing it in front of them, and therefore then affect change. So let's all please be thoughtful about who we can bring to this change, to make the change.
And we've got a whole group of nerds who've done all the research for you. So we can give you a brief, you tell us what you want it to be, and we can give you the information. The reason this is so exciting is that it is actually, it's not simplistic, but it is simple. It's things we do every day that if we tweak, we can make the world better. And that's why that 40% number is so vital to hold. You don't have to create some newfangled device to clean the environment. You can make sure that your house is heated or cooled differently, that you cook differently, that you drive differently. Those are choices made at the kitchen table and in your garage that can change the future. That's powerful, and it seems overly simplified, but it is truly just that easy. We just have to make sure everyone knows it, and someone else will help you pay for it.
Which is incredible news. And I'm so grateful that you said, you know, we have a bunch of people waiting to give you the information with Rewiring America, particularly this idea of electric creatives, you know, that there are organizations we can call to become educated. My producing partner, who I'm staring at, Jamie Lemons, and I are producing a show right now, Palm Royale, and we're in the middle of it. And it took amazing companies and organizations to guide us to how to become electric on set, to remove our dependency on fossil fuels, even in base camp, to come up with meals. I had no idea how to transition meals for a crew that would be more thoughtful and waste-free. And there's so many amazing organizations waiting to teach us how to do this. So maybe with the guidance of the RAP, we can even do a follow-up to make sure that with Rewiring America, et cetera, we have contact information so that we can follow up. But I wanted to ask you, Stacey for guidance, because I want to understand how, I mean, this is a particular specific question in terms of the climate work here, but also a larger one that maybe you can speak to. When there is this impending threat of rollbacks and all this incredible environmental work done in terms of regulations that we know may be gone, how do you remain hopeful about the work that we can do in this climate emergency despite impending terror?
You might be referring to this recent election, maybe?
That's it. That's the one. Yeah.
Do you want me to move so you can lay down on the couch? Or?
Yes, yeah. I just cuddle up to you.
So I love Jordan's speech, and I love the theme, which is aspire, build. And those are two things that happened in this current administration when it comes to the issue of tackling climate action. But the third piece is redesign. And that's the phase we have to head into. There was aspiration, there was building, but because of the incoming administration, we have to redesign. But redesigning does not mean ceding your power. I did this podcast and I talked about insistence. After the first time this administration came into power, we talked about resistance. Resistance feels good. And it was necessary, but resistance also presumed we didn't know what was going on. We are in a moment of absolute knowledge and a concomitant terror. That terror, though, can only overwhelm us if we forget that we are still here too. This was not a landslide, despite the lies and the inability to read numbers. This was a loss. It was a loss. It was not a landslide. And the reason that matters is that losing means you didn't get it. Landslide means you probably can't get to it. But we lost, but we didn't lose our power. We didn't lose our citizenship. We didn't lose our voice. We didn't lose our imagination. And we refused to lose our positioning and our platform. I don't believe in resistance. I believe in insistence. I insist that this is still my country and I have the right to demand that it be everything it should be. I insist that we redesign our expectations to meet the moment. Terrible, horrible things are going to happen, and we are going to be responsible for wrapping our arms around those who do not have the same position and privilege that we do, but still need us to be there. And wallowing is a luxury. I've done it a couple of times. Usually 4 to 7 days after an election, I wallow. But then I remember, I'm from the South. We've done this before, and we're still here. And our responsibility is not to wallow, but to work. More than hope, determination is our superpower. We have to be determined to survive whatever they throw at us, whatever deregulation they try to achieve. They can't stop us from buying stuff. They can't stop us from telling people about what's out there. And we can make it hard for them to take things from us. The whole notion of voting rights is to tell people you have the right to vote. You may choose not to use it, but no one should have the ability to take it from you. We have the right to a clean planet, to survive, and no one has the right to take it from us. So we have to insist that we are going to aspire, we are going to build, and we are going to redesign to survive this moment, because the next moment is going to be ours. That's our power.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. With that determination, if we all, in our closing moment here with you, could be dedicating a commitment, what would you wish from all of us could be an action in these moments, each of us, about something we should research and look into today in our own home, in our own job, in our own workplace?
So Everything Everywhere All at Once, amazing name for a movie, terrible mission statement. We can't, but we can all do something somewhere soon. So go to rewiringamerica.org, look it up. Go to the Electric Creatives page, look at one thing that in your role you can do to bring the electrification message to your audience. Because you have the privilege of being in a room and knowing the power of storytelling. How are you going to tell the story of promise, of possibility? How are you going to tell people that they are entitled to more? Not the people who know about these rooms, but the people who are looking at their phones looking for 5 minutes of grace. What can you show them that shows them that more is possible? And that can be that they can have that newfangled induction stove that heats water in approximately 32 seconds, that they are entitled to a subsidy for a heat pump so that they don't have to keep the box fan going, or worse, the space heater going in their child's room. Telling those stories so that those families know that you see them, that you're willing to serve them. You don't have to serve everyone, but you have the ability to find how you can tell that story. But that begins by knowing the stories that need to be told, and I have faith that you can get it done.
Thank you, amazing Stacey Abrams. Thank you for this time and your wisdom.
Laura Dern.
And your determination. Bless you. Thank you, everyone.